And can talk about both ends of the spectrum. I mean, we all know about his work and what he has done, and all his achievements. But from a personal point of view, I think this has come as a huge loss, because I don't think I would have been here talking to you all without him having guided me. I don't think I would have ever become an ecologist if it had not been for him. And I'm happy to also point out that, in fact, his own journey as a PhD student was with his work on fish, and I kind of took up the thread as his last PhD student, also working on fish. That's something I feel very humbled about. And of course, I am sure others here will tell them about their own personal journeys with him, those who had the fortunate time to spend with him. But I would like to point out my own experiences. He was one of, I mean, I am fortunate to have worked as a student, because he guided me in a way which I don't think any other guide could have possibly managed, in the sense that he gave me the freedom. He believed that a PhD student, mentor should be there as a helping hand as and when it is required, and he did exactly that. And I could go to him anytime. That is the other thing that I found very humbling, in the sense that I joined at a time when he had started his international projects. He got this huge project from the Pew Foundation to study the Western Ghats biodiversity, and he started this really mega project, and so he got really involved with it. He was very busy, and yet he was always there if I needed him, and that I found is just amazing. Throughout my PhD journey time, he was busy. He was traveling both within India and abroad, but as and when I needed to meet him, he was there, and that is something that is really amazing. And I don't want to go into the general topics of general information, because I'm sure all of you know. But as my mentor, I must say that he has been one of the best mentor I could have ever had. I would stop here, because I'm sure there are many others who are waiting to also speak. Thank you very much, Professor Banerjee, for allowing me the chance to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. And thank you for letting us know about your personal journey as a PhD student of the great man. I now request Professor Rajendran, Professor C.P. Rajendran. He is with the National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bengaluru. Professor Rajendran.
My association with him is not any, there's not any professional association. I've seen him through, from a distance, because during my tenure in Indian Institute of Science, I had occasions of meeting him a couple of times and talking to him. And we had certain common areas of work, although I'm a geoscientist, and a researcher in earthquakes and other, which is totally different area of work, what Professor Gadgil had been doing. So, I know that there are students here who can probably talk in a more detailed way. But, what I would say is that, he's in passing, Professor Gadgil's passing away, we actually lost an intellectual, who is acknowledged as the foundational figure who shaped the modern ecological and environmental studies in India. He took, as all of us know, that he took his PhD from Harvard, and in mathematical ecology. He had closely worked with Edward O. Wilson, who's naturalist who founded sociobiology biology and all that. I mean, he had a very strong base in his studies, especially from association with all these people. And after he returning to India, and as I understand, as I read from some of his memoirs and others, I find that he has actually worked with Vaman Ravu Vartak, who traveled. They traveled extensively. They talked to local people. They went to forests, and tried to understand what are the, the interaction between people and other ecological niches there. And he has written, both of them have written a sacred grouse of India, a plea for conservation. This is one of his, I think, after coming back to India, history of society, which he was the head of. Satish Dhawan had invited him to the Indian Institute of Science in early 1980s, and he founded, after joining Indian Institute of Science, he founded the Center for Ecological Sciences. I mean, it was probably one of the first of its kind, that Foundation for Ecological Studies in India. And he has also been able to bring in the specialists from disciplines like economics, sociology, anthropology, philosophy, and it's become also branched to environmental humanities and all that. So he is the one who has actually founded ecological studies in India, and that started in Indian Institute of Science. And if you want, I mean, a person like me who has seen him from a distance, want to know more about him, one should be reading his account of his life called Walk Up the Hill, living with people and nature. That is one of his, account of, a paper, mostly autobiographical, and which he will tell us, how, his experiences from in his life experiences has shaped him as his connection to nature and his relationship with people. His studies, whatever the scientific studies, you cannot see him away from the interaction with society. That is what makes him different as a scientist in India. And also he has a wide network with various groups, diverse groups of socio-economic types. So he has been like, if you look at some of his experiences, what I find most striking, to me, was that when he talks about his one of his trekking with one of his a friend, who is son of his gardener, who they both of them went when probably during his when he was 14 years or 15 years, and he went into to some parts of the forest near Satara, where his mother comes from. And then what happened was, after some hours of trekking, he found that they was thirsty, and they went to a nearby temple on the hilltop. They were actually trying to get the help of for the priest there to get some water for drinking. And when the priest asked him very, very, very curtly that, "Are you Brahmins?" And he also added that, "I have only water for Brahmins, not for others." So this, because he was brought up in an environment, he was son of Dhananjay Ramachandra Gadgil, was a renowned economist. I mean, especially some of us remember that Gadgil formula, during earliest years of Indian, independence and all that. So he was a renowned, and he was a non-religious person. He was all of them. He has brought up his children in a non-religious environment. So he himself, Madhav Gadgil, though belonged to a Brahmin community, never wore sacred thread. So he replied to the priest that, we are not Brahmins, and he just went off without drinking water. So this is what I wanted to tell you, and these are the formative experiences that enriched him, and and also for strengthening his resolve to have bridging the ecological science with social equity. He understood the social disparities and inequities, and he has actually tried to disparities and inequities, and etc. So how we can define his understanding of the ecological science is that though he has a trained in Western science, he has a deep respect for Indian traditional knowledge. So he is actually, that is how he has cultivated, very globally informed, but it's also that knowledge is highly locally rooted. So that is what I find him different from many of majority of our scientists in India. So even he had the fortune of in working with his wife Sulojana Gadgil. Herself is a renowned scientist in climate scientist who passed away last year. But he also worked with her and brought out a lot of research papers and all that. So one important thing we have to remember is that yes, his role in bringing out certain acts from the government of India. One thing is the Nilgiri region was declared India's first biosphere reserve because of his initiative. So that also goes to Bandipur forest, near in the Karnataka and all that. So all these are services to the nation that we should always remember. And he has had his role in 2002 Biological Diversity Act and 2006 Forest Right Act and all that. Very important acts as far as environmental science are concerned in India. So these are all these acts actually bear his influential imprint. And also coming to the most seminal work is that in 2011 Gadgil actually chaired a committee and they brought out a report on Western Ghats, which has become a highly contentious, same time very highly celebrated work. Can actually define it as a landmark document for India's environmental movement, and its recommendations faced of political reluctance and all that. And and this is not having a situation, but Madhav Gadgil is of those leadership, if whatever. I mean, he's not a man pleaser. So that is one important thing we need to remember about Professor Madhav Gadgil. And for also we have to remember that psychology. I know that there are many scholars here, and remembering
Rajendran.
Madhav Gadgil, we need to remember that his entire philosophy of science is democratic, rigorous, and rooted in Indian concept. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, your voice was breaking in the meantime, so sometimes your internet connection probably is a bit slow. Anyway, now
can I break in for a moment?
Yes.
It might be better not to have a video on because occasionally it makes these lines unstable.
That could be one reason. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you, Professor Rajendran. Thank you, Professor Rajendran.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, you gave us a glimpse of his work on the Western Ghats, which I'm sure many people have heard of, but did not have a clear idea what he did or what his seminal contributions were. Thank you very much. I now request Dr. K.A. Subramanian. He is the officer in charge in the Southern Region Center of Zoological Survey of India. He had a long association with Professor Gadgil. So, Subramanian.
Pranams to the departed soul, and I thank you, Professor Soumitra Banerjee, for giving me an opportunity to share my experiences. Professor Rajendran nicely summarized the entire work of Professor Gadgil, so I'm not explaining more on that. So I just mostly on a personal journey. So I joined Center for Ecological Sciences in 1997. So Anuradha was a student. And I was continuing to interact with Professor Gadgil till very recently, up to his demise. So we had regular touch, and we had worked on many projects. So I was fortunate that I was working with him for a long time. And Professor Gadgil, initially I worked on with him on the Western Ghats students network, students and teachers network, and later on the development of the People's Biodiversity Register. So essentially, he is a naturalist with a childlike enthusiasm to learn new things. So he continued to learn till his death. So last thing we interacted was on, he was asking me, how to use this uh, Notebook LM. So he was explaining me how to use Notebook LM for research and how we can use it for translating many local languages into English, or from English to local languages. So he was telling me how to use all those things. So post retirement, he was very active in Wikipedia and other social science initiatives, where people participation was his most important thing. So we also did lot of extensive field work in Western Ghats. So I was also part of this Western Ghats ecology expert panel. So we, during that time also, we traveled a lot and also interacted with people in Maharashtra and also in Kerala and also in Tamil Nadu. So I was fortunate to be closely associated with him, and we did several field experiments, especially in Karnataka and Maharashtra, for developing the People's Biodiversity Register. So we had stayed with in the tribal villages or interacted with local farmers or artisans. So essentially, if you look at the like a scientific journey of Professor Gadgil, he is like more like an artist. So he don't use the same canvas again and again, or he doesn't repeat the his themes again. So if you look at the PhD students, so they have done, each PhD is a unique thesis. So there is no, you may not see any continuity of the work. So what you see that people have worked on like lichens, that is microbes. People have worked on elephants. People have worked on human ecology. The Silanjan's thesis is a wonderful example that formed the scientific basis for the PBR. Or people worked on wild relatives of cultivated plants. People worked on fishes. So people worked on birds. So each thesis is very different. But if you look at the underlying theme is that how we can best conserve biodiversity involving people, and how, what are the kind of knowledge the traditional folks, traditional knowledge associated scientific knowledge. So he was always very particular that, though, to differentiate between the traditional knowledge, the myths, the knowledge, and the beliefs. So he was very much interested to how to scientifically validate the knowledge. So how to bridge the gap between traditional knowledge, traditional practitioners. So we used to conduct extensive interviews and cross-validation of tribals, farmers, other things. So the approach was much more, it is before time. Like now we are talking about, so this happened much before what people are actually thought about how these can be used. Now government is talking a lot about traditional knowledge, but this has been done by Professor Gadgil about 30-40 years ago. And you can see this in his papers on sacred groves, other traditional conservation practices, etc. But I had we had long discussions on, like, you love walking, so we used to have long walks after the field work or in the evening. So he used to discuss how these things have, like, when he came back to India from Harvard, he was hardcore ecologist, mathematical ecologist, as Professor Rajendran told. But he had an opportunity to, like, from his childhood, to interact with Dr. Salim Ali, renowned ornithologist, and post his return to India, he was involved in with Kerala's Shastra Sahitya Parishad, KSSP, and he met Professor M.K. Prasad, and they both worked for a long time on People's Science Movement, and he was very much involved in the Silent Valley Save Silent Valley campaign. That, and he was also a member of the Professor M.G.K. Menon panel on the biodiversity assessment of Silent Valley. So that the Silent Valley movement was actually a people's movement to save biodiversity of Silent Valley, and Professor Gadgil was could that time immediately knew the power of the people's movement and how that can transform, or how informed citizens can take a very robust and democratic decisions. So that made him, I think that made him the change from, like, if you look at his publications post 1980. So because the Silent Valley movement was 1979, he was a member during that time. So post 1980, you can see a drastic transformation in his papers, where he talks more about uh, public movement and people's movement on conservation, and also his association with Professor K.C. Malhotra and Vartak, the people who actually did a lot of work on sacred groves, agropastorals, and their knowledge. So in totality, the complete transformation of a people scientist, what we can call it, at how we can transform the society through involvement of people, or from the lab to the field to the people. So that was his entire philosophy, and he continued that till his death. So he was using the newer media like Wikipedia or the even WhatsApp. He was very active in WhatsApp. So we have a discussion group on human wildlife conflict. So he like how we can transform the society through continuous interaction. So that was it, and he was a evergreen optimist, we can say that. So he will never give up. There are several failures, experiments, failures. So he used to say that science is the only field where government is paying for failure. So we have the right to be a failure. So he was very much very open to discussions, very open to criticism. So all the students know that you can discuss anything and you can disagree with him, and he is very punctual. So with this brief in my experiences, I would like to conclude, and I think it is our duty to continue his legacy and continue his ideas, and continue the people's movement on science, so that we can try to transform the society with all its deficiencies. And thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Subramanian. You really gave us a idea of the canvas in which Dr. Gadgil worked. Thank you very much. I now request Professor Shilanjan Bhattacharya, who was also a student of Professor Gadgil. Professor Bhattacharya is now a professor of zoology in the West Bengal State University. Professor Bhattacharya.
Yes, thank you. And it's a bit, I'm scattered in my mind how to start, how to organize that I want to share, because so many things are coming, crowding in my mind. See, I joined him I joined Center for Ecological Science on 1986, and during the selection interview, there some Malayalam.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope, please. Now, see, anyway, 1996, I had the opportunity to join him. He offered me. After the interview, when students are opted to, given option to select. So at that time, I said that he's told me about human ecology, and I bluntly on his face told that I don't know anything about it and it doesn't sound very interesting. I was mad to join a project on elephants, and I joined. Anyway, that's a irrelevant story here. I came back next year as a student in human ecology, and Center for Ecology, I think in terms of new student, I am the first one, but Ranjit Daniels, Dr. Ranjit Daniels was senior to me in CES, but he was already working in Center for Theoretical Studies in some projects. And Sukumar, Prasad, there were a few students who worked under him. But it is true that I was the first student in human ecology. And I remember he called me and told that, see, because as people know me closely, those people know me, they know that I am stupidly courageous, desperate kind of characters, and always love to jump into challenging things. So he told that this is completely a new area and we have to build, and I'm searching for a guy who is courageous enough. He also mentioned, which I should not mention, that I was looking for a very bright boy. So if you want, I'll be very happy to get you there. So I joined and I worked. It's irrelevant because he has written his memoirs, he has written about all these sort of things, and in his publications are there regarding his work area, achievements. Others told Rajendran Saab, told Anuradha, who is junior most, the very adorable, the last student of Gadgil lab. And they told, I'll rather share with you some of the aspects of his personal life as we encountered. I've been encountering even just before he got the femur broken. And then once he came back from the hospital after the femur operation, I talked to him. He was insistent on talking for longer, but then I told him that you have to take rest and I will be talking again. I will call you soon. And next, I think after 2 days, I got the call that he has passed away. It's this age and he was suffering, so nothing to meant to be sad that way. But Gadgil, what I'm feeling now, personally, there is a huge void in me. I didn't realize ever that I am so close to him. It's a very personal feeling I'm sharing you. Pardon me. I've been interacting, and it's a bit unique that everyone, as I know them, he was frank with everyone. He's a very accessible guy. But at some level, we used to share something which no others used to share. The credit goes to me because I was stupid not to realize his rank, his mountain-like high positions. I failed to consider in my mind when interacting. So I was very open, straightforward, saying whatever I feel on his face. And somehow it is its nature that he liked me for that. I have realized it later. Anyway, all these personal things we can avoid. I will rather tell you my assessment about what is the greatness of achievements, not in tidbits, in nitty-gritties, but it's an overall pattern. He was definitely the first modern ecologist in India. I have scanned through. There are works in, say, energy flow and other things. But as a whole, this post-Hutchinsonian development of modern ecology, which is quite different from the previous ecology, it is Gadgil as the flag bearer who brought it to India. It's theoretical, but he did also lots of empirical observation to test his models, mathematical models. He was the first in Harvard University to do PhD on a biological topic from the Department of Computer Science. And throughout his life, he was savvy with the digital technologies. He was like a kid in his enthusiasm to use it, new one. And often, just the opposite, I am little averse to technologies, and I used to be scolded and advised very patiently, softly, that you should not be like that. You should embrace technology for your development, own development. So modern ecology, he established, and through Center for Ecological Science in India, if you look at all the great scientists today, from coming from Center for Ecological Sciences to name Professor Raghavendra Gadgil, the first observation on wasp in a modern aspect, modern behavioral aspects, it is Madhav Gadgil who did it with Professor Mahabal, the first paper in current science I read during my MSc. Of course, Gadgil independently developed himself a lot, but the patronage of and guidance of Gadgil was very much important in the initial years. Sukumar, the elephant man, the most famous researcher in elephants and elephant conservation, was his direct students. And the approach, it was just not natural history. He infused into it the real dimensions of both true science, for example, in analyzing the elephants' diets, to the human-elephant conflict. And this new dimension was his pioneering effort. Because previously it was a typical urban anti-people conservation approach. It's the punitive measures that Britishers took up, and with the colonial legacy, Indian people, headed by great people like Salim Ali, India continued. He is the one who brought the human face into it, and with scientific vigor. It's not just emotion. He showed the scientific dimension of it, of including the human perspective, especially the perspective of the local people who bear most of the costs of the conservation. It's the greatest contribution, I think, real and applied aspects of biological science in India. He built up the school. Most of our Indians developed their science, their own science, do legendary researches, but they failed to develop schools. But Gadgil really was successful in that. If you look at the ISARs, look at different universities, look at abroad top research institute, you will find that CA students are doing fantastic jobs. This is his contribution. I will then be specific in giving you some example that it is now said, and I have realized long back, that science, theoretically speaking, science is, unbiased, irrespective of any influence of society and other things, which is not. Someone's upbringing, someone's social approach, teaching always influences scientific approach. And Madhav Gadgil is one of the best examples of it. For example, his father, Dhananjay Gadgil, as he wrote, and he told me lots of stories, personal stories, which he has not written. From that, I was sure that they hated these caste systems. They hated this religious paraphernalia. They were not against the religious feelings, the spiritual feelings. They were against religious organization dictating the society. And especially in the bad side, like caste system. Caste system specifically he hated. I'll give you an example. 2-3 examples I will give you. That is the most important aspect of it, I think. I was working in Karnataka. I didn't know the language that much. I knew very marginal language, but I needed to follow what people are giving me as information properly. So Gadgil provided me with a, a field assistant. His name was Yashwant Kanade. I don't know whether Kanade Yashwant is listening to. I would be happiest to have had him here. Anyway, so he had just joined as a technical assistant or something, as a what you call in this motor, there was a position of uh, putting wares or something. But that fellow was very enthusiastic and studied social science. So Madhav told me, you should encourage him so that he go for higher education along with your field work. And Yashwant Kanade was really my blind man's stick. Wherever I went, he helped me, and it was very difficult field work into remote villages of Karnataka, dry tract, wet tract, everywhere, forested tract with the shepherds. And he was with me. Without him, I could not have done any PhD. I would not have gained my PhD degree. Now, Madhav told me Yashwant Kanade is from a lower caste. It's very unfortunate that I'm feeling embarrassed to mention this, but with all reality, it matters in India, even today. And so Gadgil told me, you should take care of him. If that guy comes out with higher education, I can help him. You just give me your report back how he is developing. So the way I told Yashwant is fantastic. Yashwant learns very well. He is very humble, and he never says no. That's the greatest thing of him. And I can often depend on him going to Bangalore, telling him that go there and collect this data, and he collects very nicely. And with I can tell you some of the problems with Yashwant Kanade. Kanade name uses caste indicators. So most of the places we had to hide his name as K. Yashwant. Otherwise, you would not be allowed inside the village. Forget about going inside the house where I have to observe and take many observations. Anyway, we managed it. At the end, when I finished most of my field works, came back. So Gadgil told me the librarian position is there is no librarian position is there, but the CS library is going. It has to be managed properly. What do you think of Yashwant Kanade giving me this charge? I said he would be fantastic. He's a very disciplined guy, and rules means rules. He will never favor anyone beyond the rules. So Gadgil appointed him as the acting librarian because there was no post of librarian that time. Later, and I can tell you, in a upper caste dominated IASC, it's very unfortunate to tell, but I don't care if sentiment hurts, that people were not happy. Everyone was criticizing and telling it will be a disaster, not referring to his caste, but assuming that he is not well educated and he is not a librarian. But anyway, Yashwant did fantastic job. Raghavendra Gadkar also supported him like that. Most of the faculties and CS guys, other than a few, were supportive. He proved himself fantastic. And when the position came, by that time, he has, with the support from Madhav Gadgil, He has passed the librarianship, and later he did MLib. Probably he did also PhD and retired as a glorious librarian of IISc, one of the librarians of IISc. That's my friend Yashwant Kanade. And second, I will give you a lecture. Madhav was invited by late Buddhadev Bhattacharya, the chief minister. They decided to run a series of called Bengal Science Lecture. Unfortunately, it didn't go beyond, I think, 2-3. The first one, they invited Madhav to talk. And as it happened, Subbu knows very well, whatever in the eastern side of India happens, especially in West Bengal, Madhav will call me and ask me about it, that whether he should go for it, he should do for it. I was really proud of telling these things. Or if someone asks Madhav to give a lecture, invite the things, he will tell, ask Silanyan, contact Silanyan. I'm sorry. As usual, my voice is in a terrible state. So he came to give a Bengal lecture. Unfortunately, Buddhadev Bhattacharya was stuck up in Delhi. He couldn't come. So the it was in Nandan, and the person who was in charge taking care of organizing it and taking care of everything, managing, it was the then chief secretary. I don't want to name him because he has become a political personality of late and even withdrew from it recently. So at the end of the lecture, he told me, just before the lecture, he called me at the wings and told me that Dr. Shilanyan Bhattacharya, please be with us. We are inviting him for lunch. You be also join us. I was a bit embarrassed, wanted to avoid, but anyway, Madhav would not leave me alone. Leave me. So I was waiting. So Madhav finished the walk, came to the wings and sat on a sofa in a room, and Chief Secretary came and told that we have organized a lunch for you and your student. Let's go. And be assured, you are a Brahmin, so we have organized a vegetarian lunch. The moment he said, knowing Madhav for so many decades, I felt the cold wave ran through my spines. And really it happened. Madhav got furious, burst into anger and told the chief secretary on the face that I thought Bengal is the most educated state and it is the birthplace of Chaitanya Dev, and communists are reigning here. So I was the idea that caste system has abolished or minimum present here, and you are identifying me as by my caste. My at least 2 generations, for 2 generations, we have never followed the caste system. I hated it. And he was so angry, he told that I will not take lunch from you. And turned towards me, he told, Shilanjan, you have been claiming that Calcutta beef is very good. Let us try today. I was, imagine, Madhav will go back, but I will be staying in the state. So what to do? And we were saying, sorry, asking for pardon. Madhav didn't yield. Madhav left the place with me. That day we couldn't go into beef place, but we went to Changwa and had all kinds of meat. That day he was so angry. So this is Madhav Gadgil. He was genuinely pro people. This is because of his two people's influence is most important in his life, uh, which turned him into such pro-people, pro-poor person. One is certainly his father, Madhav Gadgil, uh, and second is Iravati Karve, whom he used to refer as Iruka Kakima. When he was very young, around 10, 12 years age, Iravati Karve used to take him to the field and get field work done, staying with the poorest people, tribals, nomads. And since those days, he really saw the beauty of grassroots level India. And when he brought real science, high level science into ecology in India and conservation, he found that scientifically adding dimension, the rights of this poorest strata of people are scientific itself. I personally feel that is the greatest contribution in India. Conservation, ecology, all these blah blahs in the name of science, urban, higher educated, snobbish people dominated who are mostly indifferent to the poor people, if not against them. And Madhav Gadgil, like a mountain, stood against that school and established a school which no one could deny and accept it. And all over the world, it percolated. It's not only in India, Madhav is pioneer in pro-people conservation models, concept and works. He is pioneer. His effects really percolated all over the world, and a model came out against the Western-based ideas of nature for nature's sake and nature sake, and people should be wiped out, especially the grassroots, local, traditional people should be wiped out. Madhav's idea changed the paradigm. He is the guy who changed the paradigm in conservation science. So my tribute is to that. I am really still feeling heavy because he was a friend. He is, of course, my intellectual leader, intellectual guide, uh, catalyzer, everything. But above all, now I realize he was a very close friend. And I'm really still, I don't know how when the void will go. I think if I can write all those short things, he used to encourage me in writing. You cannot imagine. Chilanjan, you never leave it, never leave what you are writing. He doesn't follow Bengali because I love writing in Bengali other than few. He wrote the only English book so far I have written with Ritiman, the on biodiversity thing. When I asked him that whether you can introduction, bro, I'll be really delighted and honored if you allow me to write. And at once, within 2 days, he sent me the thing. Everyone was shocked that Madhav Gadgil is so enthusiastic in writing introduction to Chilanyan's book. That is because of the affection he gave me. I cherish it. At the same time, I miss him so personally. Thank you very much for giving me, pouring out a bit incoherently about his memories, about my feelings. Thank you very much, Sumitrada and all others who listened to me.
Now we have come almost to the end of this memorial meeting. As you have heard right in the beginning of this meeting, that Breakthrough Science Society believes in upholding the memories of those who have positively contributed to science and scientific temper, and Professor Gadgil was one such. Most importantly, you will find that in the scientific landscape today, most people uh, keep their science within their laboratories, and when it goes to their personal lives, we see no science. But we see a very laudable exception in Professor Gadgil, that both in the lab as well as outside, he was a man of science. He reflected a scientific bent of mind in all aspects of his life. That is something I would urge the younger generation to follow. Actually, the scientific community in India, especially the younger generation who are aspiring to be scientists, need certain role models. In India, we try to, most people do not try to apply whatever science they do in bettering the people's lives, especially the poor people's lives, and Professor Gadgil especially paid importance to that particular aspect. In all these respects, he is a character to follow for the scientific community. Okay, I see Sajeev TV has raised a hand. Do you want to say something?
Hi, Swamitro. I'm
Yes,
from Kerala.
yes, yes.
I'm a scientist at the Kerala Forest Research Institute.
Okay, okay.
I'm so humbled to hear the students of Professor Gargil speak. I've Silanjan. There's a lot of information in there. I just wanted to communicate two, 3 points. Can I?
Sure, sure. Please.
I'm not a student of Professor Gargil. The best name anybody could call me is that I was Gargil's bulldog in Kerala for at least many number of years. That has got a reason. But the way I like to place Professor Gargil's legacy is that the first thing is his contribution, which is written in the book, This Fisher Land. Earlier, history is basically when I was in a school, I was taught history as a series of kings coming up, the chronology of rulers. And then came Karl Marx. He told that history is a progression where there's a conflict happening between the haves and the have-nots. And it was the proletariat on one side uh, and the bourgeoisie on the other side. And that pulls history forward. That was supposed to be the driving force. But when you come to Professor Madhav Gadgil, when he wrote the ecological history of India, he completely replaced the narrative. Like for Marx, it was the worker, the capitalist debate, or it is the land owner and the peasant. And the society will be moving from primitive communism to feudalism to capitalism to socialism to communism. So that's a linear progression which was presented. But when you come to Madhav Gadgil, he had a totally different story to tell. He placed history as an engagement of human communities with the resource base, which is basically nature. And then he would say that the progression happens by way of hunter-gatherer communities, turning to pastoral communities, turning to agriculture, then to industry. So that is the progression which Professor Gargil put over. And within history, he opened up very magnificently. He opened up a new branch of history called as ecological history, which now has got a large number of takers. So that is one thing. And the second thing is that the very important connection which he made in Kerala, not just in Kerala, in the Western Ghats states, by the publication of the Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel report, is that he drew a direct connection between science and governance. So that is a brilliant take. Normally, when you do science, you create knowledge, you publish it in journals. Hardly very few people read about it, and the knowledge which is generated is not at all used by the people who are governing the land. And the Gadgil Committee report, which the way it is called popularly, was the first case in India where science can directly influence governance. And he told two things. In India, when you want to develop, you exclude people. Like, for example, you have a thermal power plant coming up, you displace people from there. And the electric lines will be carrying electricity to the towns above the head of the displaced people. But those people will never get electricity. So development in India is a way in which you exclude people. And come to conservation, conservation is also a process in which you exclude people. You declare a tiger reserve, you take out all the people from there, put them outside. Ecosystem people, they are completely made refugees, and you say that you have conserved. So in the report, he argued for development with inclusion and also conservation with inclusion. So these are some of the cardinal changes which he brought in. And I would like to take two cases and tell what Gadgil stood for. One is the Sariska story. Sariska, a tiger reserve in Rajasthan, is supposed to have 20 to 25 tigers. Every year, the report goes to the Ministry of Environment and Forest. But people who go to Sariska and never used to see tiger for a few years, and the news used to come in the media, and the Ministry of Environment and Forest sent people to Sariska to see what is really happening. And the expert team came over there. They verified the field books of the forest staff and found that there is absolutely no tiger in Sariska. Everyone has been poached. Now, Gadgil asks a very simple question. When the number of tigers is zero, how could the forest department write figures like 22, 21, 24 in every yearly reports? And he says that no government officer is supposed to tell the truth, which will make the life of the department difficult. The first story. The second story comes from Bharatpur, where Salim Ali had a long work over there. Professor Madhav Gadgil was also with Salim Ali working there, and that area had been the place where migratory birds used to come from long distances, even from Siberia. And they come over here. They during the winter they spend their time over here and they go back. And this place was used as a grazing land for the farmers who were living nearby. And the buffaloes used to come over. And when, based on the recommendation of Salim Ali, when Bharatpur was declared as a bird sanctuary, the grazing was banned. And the farmers had no other way because they have large number of buffaloes and it was difficult for them to find food elsewhere. So there was a big protest and the protest grew tragic when there was a firing by the police and 7 farmers died there. 7 farmers were killed. Srimati Indira Gandhi was the prime minister. She was tough on that. Even with the killing of the farmers, the rule didn't change. The grazing was banned. Now, after 2 years, what happened was that without grazing, the grass started to grow taller. And when the grass started growing taller, the birds stopped coming. The migratory birds completely stopped coming to Bharatpur. So it was Dr. Salim Ali's recommendation, and Professor Gargil never used to uh, believe anybody without field information. So this was the second case. Now Gargil was epitomizing the principle of science. As Soumitra was telling, there were no two personalities, just one personality. While doing science and being a family man, being an individual, being a citizen, it was just one man and a magnificent soul. Uh, uh, Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sajeev. So we are now close to ending this session. I would like to thank everybody who have spoken in memory of Professor Gadgil. And I hope that all of us who are present today will take back important lessons from the life of this great scientist, a great human being, and great patriot. I thank the speakers, Professor Anuradha Bhatt, Professor C.P. Rajendran, Professor K. Subramanian, Professor Silanjan Bhattacharya, and Sajeev TV. Those who have been with Breakthrough Science Society for some time may recognize Professor Silanjan Bhattacharya was one of the actors who acted in the drama that was staged during the conference in Science with Society in Kolkata in 2018, I suppose. Yeah. So with that, we would like to end this session and we go back with fond memories of the great personality. And I request the younger generation to follow the footsteps, both in the sense of science as well as in the sense of conducting the personal life in a scientific way. Thank you very much. With this program comes to an end. Thank you.